Thursday.
It's Alex and Naomi, Infant Feeding Team. This is our usual session on a Thursday. We're at the John Radcliffe in Oxford, and we are questions and answers on anything to do with the Infant Feeding Team. So we're quite used to doing this now. It's more than 2 years since we've done it. We do say that frequently, but I think that people are finding it helpful, and the feedback we get is that they've seen us and that they recognise us. Yeah. So and say that it's been great for them. So hopefully you'll get something out of these sessions.
We did wonder if anyone was going to join today, but I can see people joining, and we really should have had a bit. We should have had a bit of bunting, shouldn't we?
We're not being very festive.
No, we're not. So we could have done with a bit of bunting behind us, and a few sort of bits
celebrating
of red,
Queen.
white, and blue. So yeah.
So our celebrating woman, or the monarch who's done 70 years, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? So this session is just for infant feeding, so it could be anything to do with that. So you might be pregnant, you might want to have some questions about pregnancy and colostrum harvesting, or anything to do with breast development, or what to expect when you're having a baby. Lots of people ask about leaking milk and things like that. So things like that, and also anything to do with feeding later on. So if your baby's weaning, or you're feeding 2 or 3 babies, and different age groups, anything like that. What else do we talk about, Alex?
All sorts.
All sorts, anything at all.
A lot of positioning attachment. We do a lot about positioning attachment, so we talk about that. How to ensure you've got a milk supply, that's really important, because it doesn't just happen. And how to access help.
And expectations as well, on the ward, how busy it is. It's been actually a bit better this last week, hasn't it?
Slightly, we won't use that word.
We won't the Q word. No, that's just not great. I mean, people shrink back when we say that word sometimes. So, but it's not about times of visits and scans and appointments and things like that, because we don't always have the right information. So do pip in with lots of questions if you can, and tell your friends they can watch it at another time if that's convenient. All of these sessions are available on YouTube as well. They've got the OMVP website, which is on YouTube, and you can look at all the sessions we've done, lucky you, over the last 2 years. And so if you have a question that's burning and you're in the middle of the night, you're feeding your baby, you can't sleep, your baby's keeping you awake, and having a nice long feed, then you could have a look at those and watch those as well, and you might get something from those that we haven't talked about recently. We have themes, don't we? What was our theme last week? It seemed to be quite a lot of the same thing, didn't it? Or the week before it was.
We've had times when it's been all about mastitis, and sometimes it's been all about hand expressing.
Yeah, it tends to go in trends though, doesn't it?
Feeding older babies. So it does. We often get a theme comes up that just recurs and recurs. Yeah. We thought we'd talk about antenatal a bit more today, didn't we?
Yeah. So if you've got burning questions, then post them down. That would be great, because everyone else can be thinking those questions and not asking them. So if if you're worried about asking them, then somebody else is probably thinking the same and wants to know the same answer. So put it up and don't fret about things. Just put the question up and talk about it, because sometimes just a simple answer puts your mind at rest, and that's really important. So you were going to talk about antenatal, or we were going to talk about antenatal, weren't we?
So I mean, feeding's not something that just happens when you've had your baby. We need to be thinking about it beforehand, and as much information as you can get in the antenatal period, the better, really. Oh, I've got a question, lovely. I'll just quickly talk about this and we'll come to your question. But it's thinking about if any of you out there are antenatal, it's just try and get as much information before you've had your baby as possible. Do a bit of homework, really. We love you to know what to expect. It makes life a lot easier, and that's why I think a lot of mums do think about hand expressing, because that's a skill they've learned beforehand. But with your antenatal appointments, in your blue notes, so this is a set of the blue notes which you carry, your handheld blue notes. If you're an Oxfordshire mum, then this is what you'll be carrying around, your handheld blue notes. And behind, I think we've mentioned it before, but so you've got your section where you fill in your details, and then you'll get to the pull-out page that the midwife completes, and behind that we've got a number of sheets, And one's about promoting normal birth, and the other one is about antenatal conversations. And there's normally a Tommy's one, a kicks count one. So this is the page I'm looking at. It's a bit purpley more. I'd say it's more sort of magenta-y coloured than the others. And it's parenting and infant feeding antenatal conversations. The idea is that you have this conversation with your community midwife at about 36 weeks. And it's to have a chat about what your thoughts are about feeding, to answer any questions you might have about feeding, and to get you prepared for what's going to happen. Because, you know, feeding is going to be for months and months after you've had your baby, so as much information as you can get beforehand, the better. Now, I know some organisations like NCT, for instance, do full feeding sessions. They'll do a whole class on feeding, and Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support do as well. A whole you know, online class, and I don't know if they're face to face again yet, but a whole class about feeding. So the more information you can get about feeding before you've had your babies, the better. Because the more we're prepared, the better we can cope with what comes our way. Because feeding is a learnt skill. It isn't something that that just happens. Although it's natural, it doesn't come naturally. So you and your baby have to learn. So Naomi's sitting here agreeing with me next to me, because it's one of those things. It's like learning to dance. I talk to parents about it. It's a bit like learning to ride a bike or learn to dance. It's something that takes a little bit of practice and time and doesn't just happen. So knowing in advance why it's important, so why is breastfeeding really important, having an idea of what positions you might want to try, knowing how you're to get a milk supply established, and where to go for help before you've had your baby will be really beneficial. So
yeah, I think the most important thing to say is you don't have to make a decision about how you want to feed your baby while you're pregnant if you're not sure. And I think that you know, the whole thing is that you educate yourself about all the different options that you've got, and then you can make a decision. But you know, sometimes you make a decision and on the day you have your baby, that decision goes out the window and you say, actually, I don't want to do this, I want to do this. You know, and you do something completely different, and many women have done that. And I think, you know, if you commit yourself to saying I want to do this, by being asked that question, you know, you might think, oh, I can't change my mind now because I've told them I'm doing whatever. And so it's really important that you don't feel pressured to make a decision or tell anybody what your decision is while you're pregnant. And it's only when you've got your baby in your arms, when you're flooded with oxytocin, that you will feel as strongly about something as feeding your baby. So, you know, if you've got pressure from all sides when you're pregnant, you know, your mums and your family members and your sisters and cousins and you know, your partner, they'll all have their own opinions on everything, and they will come at you with all their own opinions on what you should do. But actually it's what you want to do as a family that matters, and you've got to be comfortable with that. And as Alex said, it's for a long time. You know, it's for a few months of your baby's life that you're doing it, and that's quite a commitment to feeling comfortable and happy and not feeling that you're pleasing your family and not yourself and your family immediately, which is, you know, the dyad that you have, whoever that might be, in the primary carers for your baby. And that's more important than anything else, and you shouldn't be doing anything to please us or to please the family. It's about what you want to do and what you feel is right for you. But if you don't get told and don't read about what is available and what it involves and why it benefits you, or, you know, for your babies, then you can't make that informed choice. You can't make that decision yourself, and I think that's really important. So it's about picking up on those information sessions that you get, be it private, you know, classes that you pay for, or whether it's with the NHS and you get, or a one-to-one with your midwife when you go in and have your antenatals, and they talk to you at, you know, about 34 weeks about collecting colostrum or about skin to skin, and they talk through this list that Alex has already shown you. So I think it's very important that you feel comfortable with everything that's happening and have the opportunity to ask questions. And if you're not getting the answers, certainly on this forum, this is a great place to put your questions, because people will also learn from it. But also you can contact us directly if you're not managing to access your midwife when you want to know the answers. So you know, please do ask those questions so that you feel quite sure. I think the other thing is that you should be offered one of these Off to the Best Start, which is the Start for Life series, and they do one on breastfeeding, and they do one on learning to bottle feed as well, so that tells you everything. It's actually quite a good read.
It's a fabulous read,
and it's got a lot of information without having overload. It simplifies it really well.
You should pick it up at your 36-week scan.
Yeah.
So when you come in, do ask for it. They have got stocks in the scan department. So when you come in for 36-week scan, collect it then. I wonder if we just answer the question that we've got, and then we can move on. So Jessica said, my baby's 11 weeks old and feeding like crazy and will not settle with me without feeding. He's breastfed and occasionally has express milk. He's been a good sleeper until this last week, where he's been waking most hours.
Oh, what a clever baby. We had a discussion about this last week, didn't we? And that about between 11 and 13 weeks, your baby just suddenly grows horns again. And they top up the feeding, they really ramp it up. And so the first week that you have your baby, the feeding that you do then determines what your baby's going to do for the first 3 months. And then when you get to about 3 months, then your baby starts to want to calibrate your breasts for when the next 3 months are coming in. So they don't make more milk usually, it's just that the composition of the milk changes with their demands. So they are asking to feed more, they're asking you to change milk production, and they're working with your baby's growing needs and their development. So it'll last about a week or so, and then your baby will settle down again. But they're often sleeping through the night.
Yeah.
And then they start waking up at night for a little while, and then they settle back down again.
That always used to be called growth spurt. People called them growth spurts, where maybe you had a sort of period of time where they started looking for a lot more food. It will settle down, I'm sure. If you've grown your baby to this stage and all on your milk, then you've done an amazing job, and there's no reason why it won't continue. So your body will know how to produce what your baby needs.
But it's a very classic time when babies do start to chat to you a little bit more suddenly, and you're caught out with it. But actually, we talk about it in the early days when you're learning to feed your baby, and we just say your baby's calibrating for the next 3 months, and that's exactly what they're doing when they have those lots of feeding and they're awake day and night and they're feeding a lot. They're, if you interrupt that, then you're changing the calibration for when your baby's getting towards the 11-week stage. And so the calibration that you're doing in the first few weeks is determining what you're going to need for that until that time, and then your baby starts to do the same again, like it was in the newborn days. They go back to that period, and then they ready themselves for the next 3 months. So they'll do it again towards 6 months, and that's when they're telling you, actually, I need a little bit more than milk. And they step up things. The baby starts to produce different enzymes and different things in the milk, like amylase, so they can and that helps to digest starch in the mouth. And so they don't have that until a little bit later, and the different composition of the products of the milk is ready for much more mature digestion and to accept other foods in their gut. And so it's really important that you recognise those things in your body, and you will get to recognise them as you become more experienced as a mum, what your babies are doing, and you recognise what's normal and what's not normal for your baby. And that's very much gut instinct.
I'm smiling because Jessica's come back. She said, thank you so much, exclamation mark. Fingers crossed it won't be much longer then, as it's already been 4 days.
Yeah,
keep
you'll
going,
be doing fine.
Keep going, Jessica, you're doing an amazing job. Remember that.
Yeah. Hold on to it.
Yeah. Charlotte's put up. Hello, Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, ladies. Hope you're both well. We're soon heading to our Village Jubilee Sports Day celebrations. Alicia has a lovely Hello Kitty dress that's red, blue and white colours. I'll send you a pic of her so you can see the outfit. Brilliant.
Fabulous.
We look forward to seeing it. I bet she's grown loads since your last picture. So we look forward to seeing that, Charlotte. Have a fab time. Today's definitely the day to do it. My area, so it seems to be everyone around my area is doing it on Saturday, and they're putting out requests for gazebos at the moment because the forecast is not good. So today's definitely the better day. So anyway, Taya has put up, hello, I'm currently 40+5 and have looked into multiple situations that can occur during breastfeeding, just so I can have a better understanding and how to deal with them as soon as possible if they were to occur. You mentioned before that there's an Abingdon cafe for breastfeeding, and just wondered if it was open often, and are you able to go for latching techniques, or if you're struggling, or other feedback? Absolutely. It's called the Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe. It has a Facebook page, you can have a look it up. It's run by Sue Richards, who's a lactation consultant, and a team.
Midwife.
And a midwife, yeah, retired midwife, and a team of others as well, who are there to support her, and they take it in turns who's working. So you will get great help if you go there. Yes, they will help you with positioning and attachment, and they're all round going to help you with whatever you need. The other places to access help locally, other than us, are Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support. So if you look it up, often known as OBS, lots of people refer to them as OBS. So it's Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, and they do a lot of support. They do appointments, and they do online appointments as well, so face-to-face and online. They also, as I mentioned earlier, do antenatal sessions. So you may be a bit late for that for you, being at 40+5, but for anybody else who's listening, you could access their antenatal sessions, which are brilliant. There's also the La Leche League, which are manned by La Leche leaders, and they're all trained to help with feeding. And then there is us as well, infant feeding. So, and first and foremost is your community midwives and your community midwifery team. So on Saturday I worked, and first thing in the morning I had 2 calls from mothers with 4-day-old babies, and much as I gave them as much help as I could over the telephone, I signposted them to their community midwifery teams, because at 4 days definitely you're under your community team, and they should be there to support you and do whatever they can to help you. If they feel that you need more support than they can offer, then they would refer to us. So just you're not going to be on your own when you have your baby, but you might have to be proactive at accessing the help.
And I think the other thing is to time your baby's feeds with the community midwife appointments.
Yeah.
So that you haven't just fed your baby before you go out for your appointment.
Yeah.
Take your baby really brewing a feed, because they can help you then, and that's much more useful. They can't hang about waiting for your baby to wake up, because they've got such a caseload that they're buzzing about doing lots of different things. But if they visit you and your baby's due a feed, then they can help you at that time, and that's far more useful for you than them coming in and you say, well, they never helped me because my baby, I couldn't have a breastfeed because it wasn't ready and I can't get to them any other time. So make sure you time everything with a hungry baby, and the same if you go to the local support groups, make sure you time it with a hungry baby. And if you come to see us as well, because it makes life so much better for you if you get the best out of it. And it's the same if you come along, and it doesn't matter how you're feeding, if your baby's bottle or breastfeeding. If you're having a tongue tie assessment, don't feed your baby before you come, because we can't do anything.
Yeah, we've learned now, haven't we? We actually
can't do anything at all.
We specifically say to parents, please bring your baby hungry, because actually there's very little we can do with a baby that's just been fed, that's out.
And if you put your baby in the car in the summer and give it just even a little tiny bit of food, they just go absolutely into a deep sleep and they don't wake up. And the appointments are often very limited. You might only have 50 minutes, an hour to see, and so you can't wait for that hour, because there's another baby coming in crying and wanting to feed, so we can't accommodate that, and the midwives can't the same. They can't wait for your baby to wake up in the same way. So just think it through a little bit, and if your midwife says, right, your appointment is at, then try and time the feed so that it works for you.
Yeah, get them to watch you positioning and attaching your baby.
It'll be much more helpful for you.
So Ty, the other thing you could be doing is looking at the videos that we put up. We've got 7 videos online, which cover all aspects of feeding. So we cover the importance of skin to skin, and that's included in here too. So in this, if any of you are pregnant, Ty, you are, go and find this page in your book.
Have your midwives asked you those questions?
Yes.
Have they had those conversations with
you?
So
it's to do with, it's more than feeding. It starts with building a relationship with your baby during pregnancy. So, this is something that any of you that are pregnant could be thinking about. You are building a relationship. If you're aware of when your baby's moving, if you're, stroking your tummy when your baby's moving, if you're chatting to your bump, chatting to your baby, that's all building a relationship already. Being aware of that
Connecting
baby.
with it.
Yeah. So these things all start. Your baby's been able to hear you since they were about 15 weeks old. So your baby already knows yours and your partner's voices. So these voices are going to be really, really really sort of reassuring once your baby's born. So this is important to talk to them. Involve your older siblings if they've got older siblings. Get them to talk to your bump. Maybe, show them their favourite toy and chat to them, or read a book and things like that. All these things. I know it sounds mad, but actually it works. It's fabulous.
Get them to help you with planning the room and getting the baby clothes out and talking through them and talking about the relationship with your little one as well that you've got already. And what they used to wear and things like that, because they love hearing that.
Yeah, and that means that the baby's going to be hearing those voices at that time. So the first section on this page is called Planning a Warm Welcome. So what do you already know about skin-to-skin contact after birth is the question. So it's knowing that skin-to-skin is absolutely fantastic. It's where a baby expects to be at birth. It helps the baby regulate their heart rate, their temperature, their breathing. It means they're conserving energy. It's like you going home. It's like when you walk in your front door and you go, for a baby, that's what it feels like to be skin to skin. They love it. They learn what your smell is like. They already know what you sound like. Now they know what you smell like. They know what you feel like. And they learn what your breast is like, because they've never met a breast before. They've got no preconceived ideas. They know that they've got to try and attach. They've got that in their primal urges to do that. So that's all part of that skin to skin, keeping your baby skin to skin. So, and then it talks about responsive parenting from birth. So responsive parenting, we've moved on from baby-led feeding, demand feeding. Responsive means two-way. That means that you have the right to say, my breasts feel full, I would like to feed my baby. Or I feel a bit lonely, I would like to feed my baby. Or I could really do with an oxytocin boost, I'm going to feed my baby. Not just that the baby is asking to be fed.
Demanding to be fed.
So it's two ways. It's a reciprocal agreement. That's what responsive feeding is about. It's you have a say and the baby has a say, and you can both do it. And feeding is so much more than just food. And then the final bit is about feeding, and it talks about what you already know about breastfeeding, and it's for you to discuss, how you feel about it. Maybe you have strong feelings one way or the other. And it talks about the value of breastfeeding and what protection and comfort it will provide. And remembering the final bit is, as Naomi just said, not to make a decision. Keep an open mind, see how you feel, find the information, and let's see what happens when that baby is born. So these are all things you can be doing in advance, just having a look at this. Good websites are La Leche, aren't they? And Breastfeeding Network is a really good website for information as well. And the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers is a fab organisation, if you want to look things up.
And also Global Media, they've got a great app that you can go on to. I can't remember what the app's called now, I'll tell you. And that's got loads of the Global Media app, and the videos are all on the app.
Yeah.
Then you can access those, and it's called Birth and Beyond. Global Health Media, Birth and Beyond. It's back to front, but that's what it looks like. And it's got so many videos that you can watch.
They're lovely.
For parents and for healthcare professionals, but they're really lovely. They're international. And in third world countries mostly, actually, aren't they? But the basics are the same, and it just shows you about positioning and attachment, hand expressing, skin to skin, lots of different things that you can watch. So help yourself to those videos and watch them before. There's nothing like, and actually I was with a lady in clinic this morning, and she just said, I did the classes, I did that, I did this, but actually she said one-to-one is the only way, with the baby in your arms, is the only way to learn to feed your baby. You can't, even no matter how many classes you have and what you're told, and she said the content was so huge in the classes they had, but actually putting it into practice with a baby in your arms is the most important.
We can just about that, can't we?
Yeah.
So whilst you're in the care of the midwives should be watching you feed. So we have a section in our postnatal care plan. So whilst you're pregnant, you're going around with your blue notes that we've just talked about. But once you've had your baby, you have a postnatal care plan. It's a blue and white booklet, and it is a whole section about feeding in there. So before you leave the place of birth care, so whether you've had a home birth, whether you've been in a midwifery-led unit, whether you've been on the ward, this should be completed. You should have the breastfeeding.
The midwives will write on here
So the midwife or MSW or nurse should complete this section to say they've seen you feed or talked you through it. They should teach you how to hand express, and if they've got any concerns and need to put a plan in place, they get written in here. And it's a double page spread, so as the plan changes, and things change all the time with feeding, so it's the feeding assessment goes here, and then the hand expressing, and then the plans.
But it's also communicating between the ward and the community midwife. So when you go home, the community midwife knows what plans were put in place in the hospital, so that they can carry on and see the difference and see change. And it's good communication, because you don't bring your notes home anymore. You don't have your notes beyond your birth, so they can't see what's been happening in the ward, which is more difficult. So it's always nice to have a plan there that you can read. So it's important that you sort of understand, and you can read that. If your midwife's talking at you, and you can see we talk, but you can't take that information on board when you've had a baby. You're in a real oxytocin fuzz, and you can't take any instructions, and you can't remember any instructions. That's why we have to tell you 100 times to do things. So if we write it down, it means you can read what she's told you, and you can digest what she's told you, and that's my plan. So if she tells you this is what you should do, just say, is it written in my care plan for when I go home?
Yeah. And the other thing you can do, which helps tremendously, is take pictures. You've got your baby on and your baby's feeding. Get someone to take a picture of your positioning and attachment, so that you can, when you go home, you can look at the picture and maybe get your partner or whatever to go, am I doing it the same way? Is it working? Because we revert. We think it's a one way. We'll often, as a team, we'll often teach mothers and say, if you hold your baby this way and bring them on this way, and then we might meet them a week or 2 weeks later, and that's not what they're doing anymore. And a photograph is really helpful. So when you're on the ward, and if you're in the community and someone's helped you with feeding, get them to take a photograph of what you're doing. And ideally you want a photograph of your view, so looking down at feeding the baby, and then somebody take it from the front and to the side, so you can see what you're doing. And that will be really helpful as a reminder. The other thing in the care plan is we have a checklist, these 2 pages, and they're right at the back of this blue folder, and it's
10 and 11.
Pages 10 and 11. She's ahead of me. This is what happens pre-72 hours, and this is post-72 hours. Now, the reason I say that is that people often say to us, but it's conflicting advice. I'm getting changing advice all the time. Well, the situation for a baby changes radically in the
same day.
In the first couple of weeks, the situation is changing constantly. Whilst you have a baby who is when they're first born, needs only tiny weeny amounts, those volumes go up very radically. And the poos and the wees that a baby does on day 0 are very, very different to what a baby's doing on day 4, 5 and 6. Yeah. So we are looking for a constantly changing situation. So this reflects this. So this is why we've got a checklist pre-72 and a checklist post-72. So if you look at this page, if any of you are out there and newly home, and you have your postnatal care plan, have a look. And if you can read the question and tick everything in the green, you're doing a fantastic job. If anything's in the yellow, you need a bit of support. So ask for some help.
Bring them up. Bring them up and tell them. Don't wait because she's not coming for 2 more days.
Don't worry. Bring them up.
That's a bit like putting the sandbags out after the flood. You've got to, get things in place before, and we always say it, but the closer you are to the birthday, the easier it is to make milk. Yeah. So the further you are away from that, it's harder. So you have to catch up then, and that makes it really hard work for everybody. So the more you do in the early days, you get rewarded later. If you don't do it because you're too tired, or just your baby's not doing it or won't feed and you haven't asked for help, it's going to take a lot longer to catch up later. And those are the mums we tend to see in clinic. We don't see many women that have got too much milk.
No, not very many at all.
That has got its own problems, but actually nearly all our appointments are for mothers that don't have enough milk or can't attach their babies, and they're not feeding well, or they're not gaining weight. And so that's really, really important, and they have to play catch up. A lot of it has to play catch up. So don't wait and think, I'll tell her in 2 days time, and then your baby's lost a huge amount of weight and has to come back into hospital. Whereas if you've been seen 2 days before, they could have got a plan in place and diverted the risk of being readmitted to hospital, because you've got onto it. You're doing a plan that's feasible for you in the early days, and then your baby will catch up and the milk will come in more. So it is a really difficult fine line, and you're never bothering anybody by ringing. I think that
what you're doing is actually saving work in the future, because if you
time saves 9.
Exactly, because what you're doing is hopefully preempting the risk of having to be readmitted. So the more you can be proactive in the beginning, watch the poos and the wees, make sure your baby is pooing every single day up to 6 weeks. So that's a really good sign. And what you're looking for in the first few days is that it goes from thick and sticky like Marmite on the bottom, very difficult to get off. Then days 2 and 3, you're going to see it's getting a bit more green, it's getting a bit easier to get off the bottom. And then by day 4, it should be yellow. And if it's not yellow on day 4, then that is a risk factor for your baby losing too much weight. So we expect all babies to be pooing daily up to 6 weeks. And if they're not pooing daily, even in the first week, then we would be considering that they might be not getting enough food. What goes in has got to come out. So
we do say just £2 coin-sized poos a day, but many babies do much more than that, and that's also normal.
That's fab.
So many babies do poonamis, as you've probably all found that have had babies. Where everything comes over the top of the nappy and out the sides, and that's also normal. But we say minimum is £2 coin-sized poos a day.
Yeah.
It's not filling the nappy.
And that's all in this wonderful booklet, Off to the Best Start, page 17. And this is, you can see the pictures there. And I know it's back to front, but it starts with the black, goes a bit more greeny, and goes yellow. And this is day 4, and we want this from day 4. It's a really, really good sign if the poos are yellow on day 4. From our point of view, the weight on the scales on day 5, because all babies are weighed on day 5, should never be a surprise. If we've been told by a mother that they're getting lovely yellow poos, they're getting plenty of wheeze, then we know that baby hasn't lost too much weight. If we turn up, or we weigh a baby, or the community midwife goes in and the mother says baby hasn't pooed all day today and not even yesterday, then that community midwife will be sitting there thinking, oh, I think this baby might have lost a bit more weight than I would like. Or they're told that the poos are still dark on day 4, day 5, sorry, then again they're going to be thinking, okay, this baby's probably lost a bit more weight than I would like. And all babies lose some weight in the first 5 days, but what we don't want them to do is lose too much.
The other thing to say is that if you've had any chest or breast surgery, or had any surgery on the sides of your back or anything like around here, you ought to be talking to us, because to your midwife, because sometimes you don't mention that you've had, say, breast implants or breast reduction, and they're helping you breastfeed. It's not very bright in the rooms. They can't see if you've had surgery or not. Sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes you can't tell these things, and there are risk factors with that. So if you've got any issues, and also say why you've had that surgery, because sometimes people have surgery because they didn't grow breasts at all, and that is quite a red flag for infant feeding team, because actually if you haven't got the glandular tissue in your breast, so the fullness in your breast, not size but the fullness, it's sort of rounder rather than very tubular, so if your breasts are very tubular, it may be that the glandular tissue isn't as profuse as if a mother's got a slightly rounder breast. And so you might have had an implant because your breasts were different sizes, or they didn't grow, or it might just be cosmetic, and that is very significant in milk production worlds, because it might be setting an alarm up for us to say actually you might not produce as much milk as some mums. So you need to be really proactive with us and having a plan put in place. So if you've had anything like that and you're concerned about that, then ring us up if you haven't told your midwife, and ring us up and have a conversation. We could always have a telephone appointment with you and put a plan in place for when you've had your baby, and then alert you to who to contact if your baby's not gaining weight, because actually sometimes midwives forget to ask if you've had any surgery. They're looking at an overview, and they don't look at the particular questions that we might ask when we're seeing you in an appointment.
Yeah, risk factors from an infant feeding point of view are different to pregnancy point of view. So things that we're particularly interested in are things like if you have polycystic ovary syndrome, or maybe you're hypothyroid, or you diabetes, diabetes of any form, GDM, type 2, type 1, any of these things, as Naomi's mentioned, surgery, whether it affects your breast, your chest, or your upper back. Or actually, if you've needed fertility treatment for you because of you, if you've needed fertility treatment because of a partner, then that probably isn't likely to be the issue. But a mother that's needed fertility treatment because she struggled to become pregnant, that is another risk factor for us.
You know, it might be an imbalance of your endocrine, and you know, breastfeeding is very endocrine. It's all about your hormones, the endocrine hormones, and you know, if one's slightly off kilter with polycystic ovarian or hypothyroid, for instance, or GDM, then that alters your endocrine system, and it's very fine balance. So if everything's out of kilter a bit, it could include your prolactin receptor response, and that's quite important in milk production. So, you know, we need to know if you've got those things going on, because it might affect your milk production, and so we have to get on it early.
Things that might affect you after the baby is born, so to do with the birth, are C-sections. So we think the babies that are born by section maybe don't go skin to skin quite so quickly, and that can delay it, because that skin to skin, the mother's body expects that baby to go skin to skin, and that's a feedback loop going on to get milk production going. So if there's been delayed skin to skin, we know that can impact on mother's milk coming in slightly delayed. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, it just means it's slightly delayed. A mother who loses a lot of blood at birth will have an impact as well, some more than others, but if a mother loses a lot of blood, then actually that can also delay the milk coming in and may impact on the amount that she manages to produce too. So we're always looking at the risk factors that could impact on milk production, whether they're already existing or whether they've come about because of the birth. Things that we're looking at. Ty did come back and said thank you so much, and she appreciated our advice during pregnancy, and she's fingers crossed that this baby decides to arrive soon. It was obviously a girl. She arrives, decides to arrive soon.
I think the other thing is if you've had any bariatric surgery as well. You know, if you've had weight loss surgery, so you've had a gastric band or something like that, it's, you know, there is a risk of absorption things for you, but also it can impact if you've had a huge weight loss on your breast tissue and accessing your adipose tissue in your breast. So you know, it can impact feeding, it can, and also if you have got breasts that have got excessive skin on them, for instance, your baby can't get a really good vacuum on your breast sometimes, that you need a bit more support. So, you know, if you've had anything like that and you're wanting to feed your baby, you know, get in touch or tell your midwives on the ward that you know, you've had bariatric surgery. Because you know, it's important that you get it right and you have a good experience. So think about that as well.
Charlotte's gone off to her party, by the way. She says, take care, ladies. Hope you have a good chat today. Got to go to take care. So have a wonderful time. I look forward to getting that picture. So I'm not surprised there's not a huge amount of questions today. We thought that might be the case, didn't we? So is there anything else we needed to cover about antenatal?
Antenatal, I think harvesting we've talked about lots and lots of times, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And you can access our videos online, and there's a fab video of a mum who's hand expressing, and we've got a leaflet about expressing colostrum when you're pregnant. So if you go onto our part of the web page, the hospital web page, if you go onto the infant feeding web page, it's all on there. So you just, you know, you'll see a link to our 7 videos, and you'll see links to all of our documents as well. So collecting colostrum. I think Off to the Best starts on there as well. What else have we got on there at the moment?
I think it gives you all the details for support, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What else have we got on there?
I'm just going to have a look. So we've got all sorts of links on there, haven't we? I think we talk about ABS as well, Oxfordshire breastfeeding support. So let's go to infant feeding. So we've got all about our clinic times, our resources. So those are the 7 videos. There's a link there. It's called the Maternity Services playlist on YouTube. There's also a link to all of these sessions that have gone on. There's a link to UNICEF, the Baby Friendly Initiative. There are some fantastic resources on the UNICEF Baby Friendly website. So if you do a search for UNICEF Baby Friendly or go via our webpage, you'll find them. There's some lovely videos on there. There's some booklets on there. There's some really nice videos about, you know, the importance of skin to skin and early days feeding.
And I think also, you know, if you are on YouTube and you're looking at things, I don't know, I'm sure you're all aware because you're probably far more savvy than we are. computer things. But if you log into YouTube, you've got the option to click on any language. So if you've got friends or you know somebody who's struggling with breastfeeding and understanding, you can change the language on all the videos on YouTube to any language. There's a very large list of languages that you can convert to on YouTube. So you can access information for somebody and put them in the right language, and that's very important that they have that understanding. And also, I think the other thing is to use La Leche International if you're having problems with languages. If you're listening for somebody else and you know someone's got a problem, La Leche International has also got a huge amount of resources which will pinpoint you to all the different languages that you can do it, or some of the countries you can put that in to those countries. Say Romania, you can put in for La Leche League Romania, and that will come up with the Romanian page for lactation. And the thing about that is that that the advice on that, if you can't understand it, the advice on that page is absolutely spot on and reliable, whereas a lot of Dr. Google doesn't have the right information. So it's really important that you can actually access the really, really good informative advice in the languages that are wanted. And La Leche International is a really good resource. So if you're a healthcare professional watching this, then you can use those resources. But if you're a mum that has that knows another mum that is struggling with languages, then something about mastitis, for instance, then the information is there in another language, and it's the right information, and it will give them the right care that they need and access to the right things. So it's a very good resource. But also Baby Friendly does a few languages, and I think they now do Ukrainian as well.
Yeah,
so
they did recently.
If you're caring for Ukrainian families, if you're hosting a family that's got a baby, say, then the information is in Ukrainian as well, so that's good access.
La Leche definitely has Spanish, French, Italian, German, Dutch, Turkish, Russian, Hebrew, Japanese and Chinese. And I know that as you said, UNICEF Baby Friendly have a whole load of resources as well, and they added Ukrainian a few weeks ago, which is really good. So, right, I thought I saw a question coming up. Rebecca's popped a question up, which is great because it means it breaks us up a bit. She said, my baby was born at 30 weeks. Oh, quite early, on the 14th of May. So he's now 33 weeks. Is there anything else I can do apart from skin to skin and spending 9 to 6 p.m. at the hospital with him to ensure we bond and he starts to breastfeed? I hand expressed the moment I gave birth and I have lots of milk. I do think a lot of this came from me mentally thinking I must get my milk to come in. I hope this might help any mums that are struggling. Rebecca, well done you. Hopefully your baby can come home soon. But
I think one of the things that we find with mums that have their babies on the neonatal unit, they pump 3 hourly, and often if you do regular feeding slots, pumping slots, when your babies are not attaching and feeding, is that it can reduce your milk production at about 12 weeks. So if you're doing lots of stimulation and pumping, obviously 8 to 10 pumps in a day, which is a huge commitment, make sure you surprise your breasts when you're doing it, so that you're peaking and troughing your prolactin levels and not doing a steady run, because that will make more milk in the long run. So yes, you may have lots of milk at this point, which is fabulous, but make sure that you surprise your breasts and do it 2 hours, 1.5 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, but no more than 6, and at least once in the night, and that will just peak your stimulations. And I'm sure they've told you that on the neonatal unit anyway, but just in case they haven't mentioned that, just make sure that because we say you need to pump 8 times in a day, and then people work it out, well, 8 3 is 24, so then you do your 3 hourly feeding, but actually that's not the best way to pump ever, because your babies don't do that. They tend to just feed when they're responding to their needs. And so you need to be able to respond to that as a baby would, and that will then prolong your milk production and keep your supply going well.
Hopefully your baby will be...
what an amazing thing.
Yeah, your baby will be able to start trying at the breast soon. Hopefully that will be a possibility. We know many babies that have been born at 30 weeks and they do breastfeed, and that you've done the most important thing you can do. You have established and secured your milk supply. Yeah, and the skin's fabulous.
Yeah, because that will make your baby play out the cues.
Yeah, so absolutely fantastic. keeping your baby close and everything is so important. There's not really anything more you can do. You are doing it all. You're doing an amazing job. And just keep going and access support as and when you need it. Obviously, you have got the infant feeding team on neonatal unit. We've got the lovely Gillian, Vic, and Emily working on neonatal, and you can access our support too once you're once your baby's an outpatient. So we see people as outpatients. We have an outpatient clinic, so we'd be more than happy to support you going forward. And see how you're getting on. And whilst we do see babies up to 6 weeks, I think we would have, we would be quite lenient from that point of view, because your baby has been on the neonatal unit for this period of time. So if you do need additional support beyond what the outreach team can offer and what the neonatal team can offer, once your baby goes home, then we would be more than happy to help.
And your health visitor will be there as well to support you when you get home. They do visit you when you get home, even though your baby's perhaps reached different milestones, and it may be that it's 6 weeks or more before you go home. They will come and see you and support you as you need it. So make sure they access you and give you that support.
We often find that babies are not great at removing milk, even when they start,
They lie to us, don't they?
They're very good at looking like they're doing a great job, but they're not doing a brilliant job. Yeah. So really up until they get to their due date, we are reliant on giving them additional milk, even if they're attaching. But once they start getting near their due date, sort of around, the 40 weeks, then actually we can start relying on breastfeeding a little bit more and maybe backtracking a bit on additional milk. So, assuming you've got your baby to the breast by that stage, then you will hopefully be able to start reducing those top-ups and relying on your baby to do a good job. But and it's amazing how they can do it. They really do get there. Once they get to that term, once they get to the point where they should have been born, they start to wake up and become an interactive part of it, whereas they're very sleepy and difficult to arouse at this age.
And we see many mums on the ward, they have their babies, and when I first started as a midwife, a baby that was premature would never be on the ward, and any baby under 2 kilos would never go home. We just didn't, and yet mums and babies are going home at 34 weeks now. And so you might be one of those mums that maybe knows you're going to have your baby a bit early, but your baby will be with you. And those of you that have gone home and your babies have been a little bit early, hopefully you were told that you needed to top your baby up because of that reliability. They're not. They look like they're feeding well, and they're not, as Alex said. So you need to be able to protect your milk supply so that your babies can then get a good supply when they're ready, and they look like they're feeding but they're not, so it's not actually making the next feed well. So you probably need to do some pumping, and you will need to give your baby extra food until you can reliably get a feed, and that reliably is when they will not physically take it, and they watch your babies carefully and do lots of weights and things, but you will need to top your baby up for a good couple of weeks if you are going home with a baby that is below 37 weeks really. And even 37-week babies, they are very vulnerable to coming back in. We see a lot of babies postnatal readmission between 37 and 38 weeks. They're jaundiced, and they're just very sleepy and not able to feed and gain weight, so they have weight loss and jaundice. And it's just that reliable transfer of milk which is not there in the same way as a baby that's beyond 37, 38 weeks. They're very vulnerable, and it causes a lot of distress for mums when they have to come back in. So I think really good stimulation, really good skin to skin in the early days, and pumping early and getting a good milk supply so that you can secure the top-ups for your baby if they need them. And then you're self-reliant, you're not having to give anything other than your milk. At the moment we are on amber on the wards, which means we've got a traffic light system, and so when we're on green, every baby in the hospital can receive donor breast milk on the ward, and then when we go to amber, it's only certain babies can receive it. So if you've got GDM, or your baby's premature, or it's very small, what else is on that list? Allergies and things like that.
Family history of severe allergies.
And other babies aren't able to receive anything other than any donor breast milk. And then on red, then no babies on the ward can get it, and only babies in the neonatal unit can have it. And it's dependent on supply and people donating the milk from the community. And at the moment, a lot of our donors have reached a year old, and so they can't donate anymore. So we've had, I think there was a big shout out.
Yes,
wasn't there?
I was just about to say, Amanda put a request out recently via Oxfordshire Maternity Voices.
Runs it.
Yeah, Oxfordshire Maternity Voices Partnership and Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, and she's had a really, really good uptake.
People.
Yeah, of people approaching her to offer and donate their milk, but it takes time. It takes time to process their paperwork. They need to have a set of bloods, and then the milk starts to come in. So there's a bit of a lag there. So we are on amber for the moment.
Really need to be doing your skin to skin and your early stimulations on the ward when you have your baby to really secure your milk supply coming in on day 3 or 4, so that your baby gets enough milk, because you don't want to be supplementing your baby if you really don't need to.
Yeah.
So it's about that early stimulation, and it's really hard when you're tired, but day 0 you start stimulating, you start offering the baby a breastfeed, and if they're sleepy and they won't breastfeed, then you stimulate by hand expressing and really prime those prolactin receptors in your breasts to make milk, and that's putting your order in for 3 months time even then. But it really raises your hormone levels to make the milk, and so when you get to day 4, the milk is there waiting and you're away. You don't come back into hospital.
Yeah.
And as we said, if you've got milk, you don't see us, not usually.
So Rebecca, I think you're doing an amazing job. You are doing everything. I mean, it's wonderful to think of you being here between 9 and 6 doing loads of skin to skin and doing all your pumping. Keep going. You're doing a fab job. Hopefully soon you won't be having to do that and your baby will be feeding from the breast. But
you're growing your baby's brain.
Yeah. Access as much support as you need. Do ask for it. You can contact us. Obviously the infant feeding team on the neonatal unit already mentioned. So brilliant. Oh. Any further questions? I think everybody's out enjoying being...
I hope so.
Yeah.
We looked out the window and we saw a couple of aeroplanes further ahead in sort of on the Chiltern brow line, and we think they're probably on their way to London to fly past Buckingham Palace. Yeah. So hopefully you're seeing that and watching it all.
Mind you, I've seen pictures of them all on the balcony already, so I don't know if they've not done that already.
I don't know.
I saw Louis, Prince Louis, who was obviously not enjoying
watching
it very much.
Watching an aeroplane go past, probably.
Which is very sweet.
Or it was the cannons going off, wasn't it? They were doing 70,
were they?
70 salute, 70 gun salute or something.
Quite impressive. Anyway, so I'm just aware that we've managed to... It's 22 minutes past, Naomi, with not very many questions. Any further questions from those that are still watching?
And do contact us, or refer a friend, phone a friend. If you know somebody's struggling, make sure they know how to access us, and we will be back next. No, there isn't one next Thursday, is there?
No, we're having a week off next week.
Yeah,
there will be one the week after. We've got us a few weeks of annual leave coming up, so we're going to have a few weeks where we're 1 week on, 1 week off. So not next week, on the week after, off again the following week. So
yeah.
But,
so save your questions up, and hopefully there'll be lots of lovely weather, so you'll be out and about with your babies, meeting other mums, which is really, really, really important in your journey as a mum with a baby. That's the thing that keeps you going, and you swap stories and they say, yeah, that sounds okay, that's my baby does that too, and that's really reassuring when you hear that. And that's been really absent in COVID, hasn't it?
It's been really hard. That's what the baby cafe, which now has been Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe. That's what they were all set up for. A lot of peer support. Yeah. It's so reassuring to be in a situation that you think, oh gosh, is it just me? And you talk to a group of people, and the mums will go, oh yeah, no, that happened to me too. And then you go, okay, it's normal.
Anxiety.
It's normal. Oh, I've had 2 more posts. Jessica's come back. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much. And Leanne, hi Leanne, has said, hi ladies, no questions from me. Lyra has settled really well with the childminder, and we still breastfeed morning and night.
Well done.
I'm going to train to be a peer supporter with OBS.
Well done you. That's fabulous.
Oh, Leanne, that's lovely. Well, our paths will keep crossing then.
Spread the love.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so pleased. That is really good news. That is really, really brilliant. It's funny how these things bring you in. I became a midwife later. I got involved in infant feeding. You never know, Leanne, you may end up becoming a midwife like me. I was involved in feeding through NCT, and then became a midwife, and then a lactation consultant. So.
And I've trained peer supporters for about 15-20 years, and I've had mums come to the drop-ins for breastfeeding support, just at the clinics and things, and then they trained to be a peer support trainer, and then they went on and did their health visitor training, and they're now leading quite high up in Oxfordshire, leading the health visitor services. So you know, it has a knock-on effect, and it's really, really empowering. And we do have many women coming to clinic and saying, oh, I want to train to do this, I want to be a lactation consultant, I want to you know, learn more, because it's just so empowering and it's so important to so many people.
Getting the right support makes all the difference. So that's wonderful. Leanne, that's great news. That's really, really good. Well done, you. Right, and I hope work's going okay too. Well done, you, for that. Right, I think we're going to sign off now.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good few weeks, and we'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.